Look, I am a sucker for a good redemption story. I think many of us are. We like seeing someone at the bottom and then able to pull themselves back up and achieve some sort of greatness. It can be really inspiring, whether we see this through a story, a game doing this to the player through its design, and then as the player inches towards bettering their character, or even through the narrative, you get this rush of satisfying accomplishment. The same can be said when a game is actually able to do this and improve itself. I think many of us can point to different games within the industry over the years that managed to earn themselves a redemption in some way. One question that I have and I want to hear from my viewers is that, has Star Wars Outlaws managed to do this? Or even have they managed to start working towards something like this? Where are they on their redemption arc? Are we at the point where the game is fully redeemed and bettered from launch? Are we just starting down this path, or are we further along than we seem, and maybe the developers are really there to improving their game, and eventually almost fully there? What is Star Wars Outlaws' redemption story? Does it even have one? How do we feel about that? Have there been big changes made to the game for the better? How do the players feel those changes are then reflected? I know this might seem like a bit of an odd video to do. Usually I make a video where I talk about a game, something I have played, something that I have interest in and want to talk about, something that was set around games or by the developers, stuff like that. But in this instance, for this video, it's a bit of an experiment. Of course, I want to hear the opinions of every viewer, because without any of you, I really wouldn't have a channel. But I especially want to hear from those who have played and spent time with Outlaws. Either they have jumped in now after some time with the updates, and how they are finding the game, and maybe from those who started with the title at launch and now have continued to play it and maybe replay it after those updates. I say all of this because I very much am interested in this game. I haven't played it. I have mocked it a bit in the past because there were just some things that I hated about this title. But if a developer wants to take the time to really better their game, I generally am curious how far they're willing to go with it. What are they going to fix? Now sure, you can always make the argument that something should be great right out of the gate. I agree we should have that, the best version of the game on day one. But through one reason or another, stuff happens and sometimes you just don't get that best version on day one. Maybe it's a form of mismanagement, maybe concepts were not fully fleshed out, maybe wrong decisions were made, among other things. But the act to actually accept and admit that something needs to be fixed, and that a developer is then committed to that, I think that also deserves to be acknowledged too, especially if the developer is then able to pull it off. Yes, always acknowledge that something should have been good from the start, of course, but at the same time maybe celebrate when the fixes do come. This is where I wonder what type of situation we are currently in with Star Wars Outlaws. I know this is going to sound really silly, but one thing that was a huge turnoff to me, a big one, was the marketing for this title, and a part of that was how the main character looked. When you compared the model used for the face and then the face in-game, they look like two different people, to the point it feels like the designers went out of their way to really ugly up this objectively attractive actress. Not everyone needs to have the sex appeal of a Final Fantasy lady, but stuff like this is something that I have seen too much from with Western developers, that it's turned into an odd cliche that I don't want to see anymore. That all being said, I did see going around that there is a mod that you can put onto the game for the PC version to vastly improve the face model. Again, some of the many benefits of PC gaming. While this doesn't really relate to Ubisoft and Massive Entertainment, to improving the game to addressing fan feedback, this is a great example that whether through a game improving or additional mods, that can also help to just better the game overall. I really didn't like the face, and now I'm like, okay, I can play this. I'm going to install one of those mods to improve that area of the game. Another side note, something one of my viewers brought up in a prior video that was a valid point and felt like a missed opportunity here. I think something for Star Wars Outlaws. Maybe the game should have benefited from having a character creation selection thing, sort of like a Star Wars Commander Shepard kind of thing. That way you could have the more traditional Han Solo-like character, especially considering that was really who they're modeling their hero after in this game. But now you could be a guy or a girl if you so choose. Related overall to where we are with this game, sometimes it's just good to go on over to the Steam reviews to sort of gauge on the player base there. They tend to be pretty raw with their comments, and you will know where the game stands. And while Outlaws doesn't have the strongest of ratings, they seem decent with a mostly positive rating for recently and overall. But it is in the reviews where you can gather some more additional insight on the current status of the game. I am a fan of those user reviews. They're more valuable than those critics. What I have been able to gather with Star Wars Outlaws is that there's areas of the game that seem to be fixed or can be fixed, like improving stealth and not forcing those situations on the player. I can completely understand this from a design standpoint. If you're going to force the player into stealth situation, and one, your game is not really built for stealth, yet the game encourages stealth, it can be very frustrating to play a game like this, especially in a situation like Star Wars where someone might want to come in and go the big and loud route, especially considering that most of the action from the films is bombastic and on a grand scale. But then others have said that the story and characters are rather bland. Now this is an interesting point, because I have not seen a game sort of release a patch to improve their writing. I have seen additional stuff come out to sort of bulk up the story, or even provide a better ending. But something like having poor writing and bland characters, that would be a huge undertaking, because at that point you might as well just work on a sequel, and shift into that direction by taking all of that feedback from your first game and then putting it into your second. But in the case of Star Wars Outlaws, you have a game that pretty much has a blank slate, so if the gameplay aspects are fixed enough, from being a more mixed to frustrating experience at times, and then being able to tip that more in a good direction, that would be a great thing. You have a game that is actually fun to play, but maybe you have the story and characters are things that you can outright ignore. I know I have had this with other Ubisoft games in the past, like look at Ghost Recon Breakpoint. I wasn't really pulled into the main narrative of that game. It didn't really compel me, but after the game got a whole slew of upgrades, massively improving the gameplay experience, I was actually singing its praises. Maybe Star Wars Outlaws can get that too. From what I have seen, it's currently getting there, but it isn't completely there yet. But again, since I haven't played this game, I very much turn a lot of this stuff over to you guys. I want to be sold on this game, or at worst, hopefully moving in that direction. But much more, you need to think, can it get there? I love the developers and their work with Division 1, and enjoyed Division 2 as well. But just like with other developers, I need to accept that the shuffling of teams happens a lot, and this could be a situation where the same massive entertainment that I love and once knew maybe isn't the one that made this game. As much as I would like to have a really good Star Wars open world game here, when this first was initially announced, I'm like, okay, just take the formula from Division 1 and just slap on some Star Wars stuff to it. I'd be really happy with that. I also wonder too, with Ubisoft being in the position it is, things are not really looking good for that company. Will we be in a situation where Star Wars Outlaws is never able to completely fix this because Ubisoft might go under as a company, or someone will just buy them out altogether? There's a lot of unknowns, and thank you for indulging with many of my ramblings here today. I want to try something different, and please give me some feedback on this video as well. I put a lot of this into your hands, and as it pertains to Star Wars Outlaws, let me know how you feel about it, if you've played it, and where you think the game is right now. Is it improving? Is that enough for people to jump in and all of that? Let me know all of this in the comments down below. If you're interested in supporting the channel, please check out my Patreon page. For just $1 a month, you can help to keep this channel going strong, and this allows me to be able to do more for my awesome audience. Please check out the links in the description and pinned comment for ways to support the channel. And most of all, thank you very much for watching.